I see a lot of MEP students online. I want to thank you. Many of my students know that I was gone for a while. I experienced the death of my 16-year-old son. He passed away recently from a driving catastrophe. He was killed by a person who was speeding and impaired. And so I want to just leave you with some words of inspiration. I've always treated the students as my family. So I'd like you to consider the gracious way that the Dean's Leadership Board is affording their time. They're providing you with a lot of resources, and I want you to think of life as being very precious and not allow the sands of time to slip through your hands. And think about your family as you go through school. You're going to make your family so proud and contribute to society. So I want to just impart on you some words of inspiration, that everyone here is rooting for your success. And I am too. I'm back. And I gather my strength from all of you. You're my children too. I've spent 30 years helping other people's children, and my son lived his life so beautifully. And so as you go through today and the next 3 seminars, think about the impact that you will make on others, and finally slow down and appreciate the resources that the Cal Poly Pomona community and the wonderful people who have come from the Dean's Leadership Board. They've lived their life so fully. They're not being paid to do this. They're giving back to you because they want you to give back to others. That is the only way that our society will be better. And my son lived his life that way at 16. He had over 500 friends from 500 schools. During the COVID time, I didn't realize until his teacher told me he Zoom bombed almost all of her classes. And I looked on my camera, there were so many students at my house. He had found those that didn't have internet, and he brought them over to use my high-speed internet. So at any age in your life, you can make another person's life beautiful. And so that is what engineering is. Engineering is about bringing goodness to life. And so I think you're gonna really enjoy all of the Dean's Leadership Board. They've given so fully, and we hope that you can give fully back. So please pay attention to the soft skills they give you, because these are lifelong skills, and I'm back here at work to help you. So I want to congratulate you for making it this far, and I know you will be fabulous in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Hey, Lily, if I may, just first off, it's really, I had no idea you were going to be on the call today. And so welcome back. And you know that we are all, everyone on this call, I see all the messages that are coming in. Our condolences, sincere condolences to you and your family. And not only that, but we are all with you in spirit, in hope, and we want you to know that through all of us, you will be strong, your family will be strong. I guess, you know, some words that I've been thinking about, and that I wanted to share with you as you were talking. Even though we grieve, in faith, we know that through Christ, we can recognize that the best is yet to come. And your son right now is experiencing the best. So understand that we're with you. We strengthen you. We love you, and we want you to be strong in your going forward. And we're here for you. Okay, we're here for you. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that, Lily, and Clark. All right. Well, let's get started. So today we're going to cover preparing a quality CV, otherwise known as a resume. I am told that there are 2 different things, but I've never treated them as 2 different things. So today they're the same. And this is, again, part of our series of stuff they don't teach you in school. And we've really had a blast pulling this together, the Dean's Leadership Board and the crew that's responsible for this. So hope you guys enjoy it. I'm a principal with company called GHD. We're a big company, about 10,000 people, about 500 people here in California, and I focus on business development and strategy, and I do a little engineering too. And I graduated from Cal Poly way back in 1988, and I started the environmental club in the civil program. And my daughter actually graduated from Cal Poly in civil just last semester. So there's that. And then I'll introduce my wife, Lynette Burke. Lynette, you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Unfortunately, I didn't go to Cal Poly, but I am a student of a state college. I've got my MPA from Cal State Fullerton. My undergrad is from UCLA. I come from, so after I started working, my specialty was HR. So I've been in HR a very long time. And I worked in school districts. So I worked for the community college. I worked with veterans, the career center, and the transfer center. So I've done a lot of work getting students to move on into their next stage in life. Hopefully I'll be able to give you some insights on that today, some of the hidden insights.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Burke.
You're welcome, Mr. Burke.
So here's the agenda. We're going to start with talking about cleaning up your public image. Then we'll go to knowing what you want, or know what you want. The third is research the company that you're interested in. Fourth is research the position that you're interested in. The fifth is the hiring manager. And then finally, we end with CVs, do's and don'ts. So we'll start off with public image. And as we all use the internet, and we all have, Facebook, and we do TikTok and Twitter, Instagram, all these, wonderful social network programs. You leave a lot of information and a lot of experiences in these programs, and sometimes a recruiter might look at that information and get an image of you. You can see some of the images over to the right here. These are not professional images or images that you want a recruiter or a hiring manager to see. So you got to make sure that you kind of clean up all of that and neutralize it, make it as professional as possible. The second bullet is really use a professional network like LinkedIn. That has really become, the network to use to communicate with other professionals. And recruiters use this all the time to get a feel for, your background and your experience. So definitely sign up for LinkedIn. You can look us up on LinkedIn. I've got, like 2,500 followers because I've been around for a while. And you want to make it very professional interests, keep social interests off. And it's never too early to start. You could start LinkedIn right now. You can even start in your freshman year and start to build on it and add your experience. And it's a really nice way to show people that you're professional or you're moving into a profession. Lynette?
Yeah, I was just going to add that you will get looked up. So at some point in your career or in your search, especially if you get closer to the screening process or where it ends, maybe to that interview stage, somebody will look you up. So just make sure that you've got, your pictures of downing do they even have beer bongs anymore or whatever, or just off your LinkedIn. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. Just add, some personal interest things. Your Facebook doesn't have to be professional, but it just has to be neutral. So I would just say neutralize it.
Great.
And also I would add, on LinkedIn, there are lots of groups that you can join. And you might want to take advantage of some of those as well. So for example, like interns, what it is important to me. So I'll join an intern group on LinkedIn.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, this is yours.
Okay, so this is know what you want. And basically, we all know how to do our Google researches. So this is just part of that. What you want to do is research the industry that you're working for. It could be, obviously, engineers and science is what we're working with here, but you might want to be in the administrative side or a more technical side. But understand your industry. And if you look over to the right there, I think there's some graphics. I'm sorry, I've got the pictures right there, but of onetonline.com. And that is a government website that also gets you into the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So it tells you the outlook, like, okay, am I going the right direction? Is this going to even be a career in, say, 10 years from now? So that'll give you that kind of information, tell you what kind of skills and, you know, people that are in that industry. So I would kind of go explore that if I were you. Talk to people in the industry, alumni, coming to seminars like this is awesome. Talk to your peers. You may know somebody that worked at GHD, you know, so talk to professors, talk to visiting professionals, just get yourself out there. You kind of want to tap into that hidden market, which we won't go into here, but that will help you out because then you get those leads into the positions that you want. The other thing is, I think you will be talking about this later in the series, but write a value proposition speak, maybe a 10-second elevator speech on what your interests are and what you're looking for and why you are a great person for that position. You might actually end up in an elevator with somebody like Jeff Burke, and you say, "Oh, you're Jeff Burke. Well, I'm excited that you work for this position." So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I run into people all the time. I meet all over the world actually. But if you're looking for a job and you happen to be at a conference, for instance, it's really nice to be able to talk about, you know, what you're interested in and why you're interested in it. And it helps advance the conversation.
And one last thing that I think needs to be on here, and it might be a given, but visit your school's career center. They have lots of resources in there for you about companies, and I just have to make a plug for that because I worked in one as well. And I noticed that the students that got jobs came through there all the time. The students that got into the colleges they want were in our office all the time. So I just want to make a plug for them.
Great. Any questions, Chelsea?
I did have one that says, I'm about to graduate and haven't used LinkedIn as much as I should have. How do I update my LinkedIn account to look more professional?
I think that's probably a whole other seminar. I'm definitely not an expert on LinkedIn. I would go look at other people's pages, see what they look like. There are people that use this a lot more than I do. Jeff, probably, do you have a profile? Like, go find some profiles. You can go on, just research some LinkedIn profiles for entry-level engineer or scientist.
Yeah, you can look at my profile.
Yeah.
You know, but I've been in the business for 30 years. There is also an opportunity to have people write something about you. And so if you worked for somebody in the past and they can, you know, put a piece in there for you, that's really helpful.
Yes.
I think people notice that. So
yeah, get people to, I think they skills that they can validate some of your skills,
right,
that kind of thing. So
right.
Hey, Jeff, if I can chime in
Yes.
regarding LinkedIn, I totally agree with what you just said. If you're a student and you want to get ideas on how you can make your LinkedIn site look more professional, go to any of the members of the Dean's Leadership Board's LinkedIn page, Mr. Burke's page, Mrs. Burke's page, my page. Any of those pages will give you an idea of how you can make your site, your LinkedIn site, look more professional. And connect with us while you're on it. Connect with us. That's very important.
Absolutely. Thanks Thanks, Clark. Okay, I'll do this one. Research company. One of the most important things to do is to show up to an interview or a conversation prepared. So if you have an opportunity to talk to a particular company, make sure you know something about that company. Are they public or private? To understand their financials a little bit, at least, what their total revenue is, where they typically get their work. If you can, get a feel for their basic structure, how many employees they have, what skill sets they typically have. And then with LinkedIn, it's really easy to find out, who works for that company. You can filter all employees that work for a particular company, and you may find that there are people that you know. And if you know somebody at a company that you're interested in going to work for, reach out to them. They can give you insights that the internet cannot give you. And the other thing is, understand what sort of projects that they do, what their current projects are, and then what their mission and vision statement is. That'll give you a lot of insights about company culture and so on. Lynette?
Yeah, I was going to say this is really important too when you are doing your resume or at that connection, because as you'll see when we start talking about your resume, you want to gear it towards the company that you're applying to. Mm-hmm. So having a good understanding of that company really gives you kind of a broad perspective on your resume. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, but there's the public sector and the private sector. So you're going to get a lot more information on the public sector side than you will on the private sector side. So it's really good to know people that, or at least reach out, find somebody that is from that company or has worked there in the past. And LinkedIn can help you with that as well, because you'll see who, it'll tell you if you're third, first connection, second connection, third connection. So. Great. Okay, so here we are, research position. So this kind of goes in line with researching the company, but what I suggest, and I tell all of my students or any clients that I've had, get a job description. And again, with the public sector, that's easy. They'll have maybe a 2-page job description. Sometimes it's a little bit more of a dig for the private sector, because they'll give you maybe a 2-sentence paragraph, but somewhere there will be one. So I found, I had a student that was trying to apply for a job, and she had maybe 3 sentences of what that job was to entail. And I went online, and within 5 minutes, I had a larger job description. And you can get them from Indeed or monster.com, but you can find some more information on that job. And if you can't call them, they'll be happy to send it to you. They'll be happy that you're interested. So go and get a job description. So, and the reason is that it'll tell you what skill sets they're looking for, and they're going to have buzzwords on there. So that is what's going to go into your resume, are these buzzwords like engineering and geotech, or engineering technician, or CAD experience. All of this will be on that job description, or it should be. So, and then you can put it in your resume. So you also, the non-technical skill set is important, like leadership. You can pull that into the position. They will ask, they'll want somebody that is a good team worker, and you need to find out what that position is. I mean, obviously there's positions that are going to be, in the back room and doing a lot more technical work, but even they will be on teams. So it will give you experience certifications. I know my daughter, when she was doing an internship, she had some lull time, and she got a certification in environmental certification. I don't recall what it is, but see what kind of certifications they're looking for. Usually it's going to be an EIT, so you'll want to get that if you're going in for an engineering position. The reporting structure and the division description, you can usually get that. And again, the public sector they're going to be more upfront about that. But you can call the company if you have narrowed it down to that and see if you can get the division in the reporting structure.
Yeah. When you apply to a large company, there's so many different divisions and they all do different things. So it would be good to understand which division you're working for or applying for, so you can research that and understand specifically what they do, and then you can, bring that up during the interview or even in your cover letter.
Yeah, so when you research those projects, it usually comes from a specific division within a company. So that would be a good start too.
Great. Okay. So a lot of us are hiring managers when we're hiring people that are going to report up to us, but sometimes you have a hiring manager that's also, part of the HR structure. So if you can possibly figure out who your hiring manager is, they're the ones that are going to be probably making the final decision on hiring you. Great to get their background, so you're really prepared when you talk to them and you can speak their language. Are they technical or are they, part of HR? And then who are they connected to? You may find that because it's a small world, believe it or not, out there. They may be connected to people that in education, or professionally. They may be connected to friends, and so you have to dig in and be sleuthy, and figure out who they know, because then you could go to who they know and maybe ask them questions about them.
Be sleuthy.
Sleuthy.
And again, on LinkedIn, if you may have a second or third connection, somebody that knows that position. And this, I would say, is going to be one of those things that is easier to find out for the public sector than the private sector. So this might take an actual phone call to the company to find out who the hiring manager is once you found that position that you want to apply to.
Yeah, it may seem creepy, but everybody does it. It's almost expected of you. And if you go in prepared, believe me, the hiring manager will know that you're prepared, and that'll impress them.
Plus, from a recruitment standpoint, recruiters like that because to get the fire under the feet of the hiring manager to move on with the recruitment. So it's a really good plan to find out who the hiring manager is, and it's not easy, but it's
right.
Definitely something that should be done.
Yes. Okay, this is yours.
Okay, so CV or resume do's and don'ts. I would always say, customize your resume. That is number one. But I'm going to go a little bit further and say maybe have two resumes. One that's kind of your calling card, and it can look a little bit prettier with the fancier graphics. But then you want one that you can adjust to each job. And also keep in mind that, I don't think we talk about this that much here, but the applicant tracking systems, that's where you upload your resume into a tracking system if you apply online. And most companies now, that's what you have to do. You apply online and upload your resume. Well, they parse the resumes. So if you have a lot of formatting on your resume, it's not going to look like you think it's going to look. And sometimes it'll throw words into the wrong places where you don't want them, or maybe even disappear. So that's customize your resume for sure, but maybe have one that's your calling card. I think that's important. Write a compelling short cover letter that highlights the position and why you are good for that position. Make sure it's short. I've seen really long ones. They're probably going to give less than a minute to look at it, the reader. So just make sure it's short and sweet and you get to the point. Highlight professional experience. Well, that's kind of a given, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. That's the researching the position, the researching the company. You want to make sure that you get your professional experience right up front. I usually recommend a hybrid resume, which is basically a functional resume resume as well as a chronological resume, and you put your professional experience up front, or some of your skills that you've learned. And because you went to Cal Poly, you have all those, hands-on experience. So you can put all of those up front, like CAD, Excel, whatever that you think that position wants. And remember, you've already have the job description, so you know what buzzwords to put in your resume because they're off the job description. And even if it's like, this is what I usually use when I tell people this, like if you babysat, that's nice, but it's not going to get you the job in, entry-level engineering technician or whatever you're applying for. But the skills that you get from that with dealing with other people or the customer service skills, there is something that you can pull out of that job that you did that will fit into this new job you're applying for. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Keep it simple, keep it clean, and try to limit it to 1 page. Don't go over 2 pages. I think you'll find as you go from job to job, you might end up going to 2 pages, but there is no reason, especially on an entry level, that you can't get everything on 1 page. And I suppose if you have a lot of publications and certifications, that would be something that could go on that 2nd page, but try to keep it to 1 page.
I also like to limit the color, so it's just 1 color, and no shading, no pictures, no logos, and I do that because you get so many resumes. It's like it gives you a headache after a while to try to understand everything, and when you see the color changes like that, it's a little bit distracting. Yeah, so don't use too many fonts. Use the same font. Make sure it's not too busy, and too long. So sometimes you'll get a resume, from somebody that's like 10 pages long, and really you should be able to get. Yeah, well, you should be able to get everything on 1 page for a job. So
yes, just keep in mind that I don't remember the exact number of seconds. It might be on that next slide, but your reader is not going to give your resume that much time. You maybe have 6 seconds to catch them and get them to read further into your resume. And so if you have too many distractions on it, they're going to look at the colors in your picture and different font sizes, and they're not going to get to the nitty-gritty in your resume. So
great. Chelsea, any questions?
We do have a couple. Okay. So there's one that says, it sounds like it's best not to search for people using the private mode on LinkedIn. Is that correct? You want people to know you are looking them up?
I like it when people look me up. I mean, I like to know that, people are interested. And so I'm sort of an advocate of not having the private mode. How about you, Lynette?
I don't know. I guess if you're going to stalk somebody, you want the private mode. But yeah, I mean, if you're a hiring manager, that I would want to know who was looking me up and say, oh, look, somebody's actually researching this position.
Right. Yeah.
So
then we have one more. What are your thoughts on putting an objective in your CV?
I actually like the objective if it is very brief and to the point, exactly who you are and what you do and what you're looking for. Sometimes people will put a profile in there instead. So instead of an objective, they'll say, I business manager looking for, some kind of job with these skills, that kind of thing. So yeah, I would definitely put that up on front if you want to.
Great.
And that's it.
Okay. All right. So these are just for you guys to read later. But these are just some basic philosophies or ideas around focusing on your skill, customizing your resume. There's a lot of bullets behind here, so we're not gonna go through it. There's a link here on power verbs, so if you click on that, you can get some idea of what those are and how to use them. so that's it. What we talked about today was cleaning up your public image, know what you want, research the company before you start talking to them, research the position, research the hiring manager, and then some do's and don'ts. So with that, we'll open it up for Q&A.
All right, so we have one that says, I am a 20-year plus Air Force vet and have a 2-page resume. Should I cut it down even if it shortens it to 1.5 pages?
I guess so. I worked in the Veterans Center, and that can happen because, and it was at a community college. So these people were transitioning from obviously the military career into civilian work. And I would say it depends on what you're applying, like what level you're applying for and what you're applying to. And honestly, I'd have to see your resume. There might be a lot of redundancy in there that you don't need. And those are the things that I would look for. If you look at that do's and don'ts, I think it talks about redundancy. So if you say the same thing 5 times, because you have it chronological, it gets a little too much. And that's something that you can probably cut down.
Yeah, these days, we're getting 100 to 200 resumes for a single position, and sometimes you want to read everything word for word, but if it's more than a page, you don't typically even get to the second page. So I know that's awful to say, but that's the reality.
The reality, so especially entry-level positions from a recruiter perspective, if you get 1,000 resumes or 1,000 applications, there is no way that you can read, everybody's 10-page resumes. It's just not going to happen. So that's why you want to be as clear and as simple as you can be and get your message across. And I think too, once you customize your resume for the particular job, you'll find that there's things that you can pull out of your resume that they don't really need to see, because it's not something they're looking for.
Right.
Thank you. All right, we have another question from Jose Garcia. It says, how can we gear our CV if most of our experiences come from an academic setting rather than a professional project-based one?
So I get that question a lot. I had worked on a speed mentoring program at Cal State Northridge for the environmental occupational safety people. And there are so many things that you do during your college career, and especially at Cal Poly, that can be pulled out. And this is one of the reasons I recommend kind of that hybrid resume. So you pull those skills out and put them up on top and say, I'm an expert at Excel. I know CAD. I've led projects. Jeff, I can't remember exactly, Steel Bridge or some of the projects that you guys. Yeah, I mean, there are so many opportunities on campus for you to get involved, and such enrichment that you can put into your resume from there.
Yeah,
I really don't think it should be a problem.
Yeah, I think at Cal Poly also, there's a senior project or a capstone that I think is really valuable to have on your resume. It's just like, working on a project. I mean, Cal Poly there's such a differentiator between Cal Poly and places like UCLA, because, we're a school that, you learn by doing. And so you get that real life experience, and definitely needs to come out in the resume.
I mean, even the classroom experience, because your classroom's going to have or at least one of them will have some kind of project. You have a senior project, right? At the end of the year that you have, like, you collected data, that's a skill. Organize data, you put it on a spreadsheet, you present the data. I mean, there's so many skills that you can pull out from the academia. And reach out to me, or Jeff, and we can help you with that.
Yep.
Okay, kind of piggybacking off of that, how important is it to be involved with college clubs? So I know
I
you
think-
kind of mentioned Steel Bridge a little bit. Can you kind of touch on that and how that relates to resume and CVs?
I think it's really important. It shows that you do things other than just go to school, right? You're experiencing uh,
College life.
college life, but working with other people, teamwork, and I think it's super valuable. Some of the clubs are professional clubs as well, and if you're an officer in a club, to me, that really means that you're stepping up and you have some leadership capabilities.
And not only that, but so I worked also as a graduate coordinator for a big engineering firm, and we reach out to those clubs. So we go directly to some of the clubs to recruit our folks. So yeah,
Right.
I think it's important too. I know you're super busy and you have to pick and choose, but if you can get involved in at least one club.
Okay, and then also kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit, one person said, I think Sean, I saw one of the CV bullet points said, don't list your courses. Does that apply to all courses, or can I keep the job related ones?
I would say keep the job related ones if it's something they're specifically asking for. So yes, when we put that, I think that means just don't. I've seen resumes where they just list every single course that they took in school and submitted that, and it had nothing to do with the job they were applying for. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I would focus on the skills that you learned in that class, because that's what they were going to want to see. They know that you took certain classes because you came from Cal Poly, right? So they can look up your curriculum, but they want to know what you learned and why that applies to this position.
Good point.
Great, thank you. Okay, I know we kind of touched on this in the beginning, but can you explain what the difference between a CV and a resume is?
Do you
Go
want
ahead.
me to do that? Okay. Well, okay. From my experience with it, a CV is really something that here in the United States, anyway, we use in the educational field. So they want to kind of have your history. So there's a lot more that goes into a CV than into a resume. Resume is one page, simple. Here it is. That states what your skills are and how it relates. A CV is, I mean, you can have your picture on the CV, your history, the courses you actually took and how they apply to what you're applying, what educational position you're applying for. I know that other countries also call it a CV, and they tend to also, when they submit resumes to us, they tend to be longer. So
I just put something in the chat. This is if it's on the internet, it must be right?
yeah.
So it says a CV presents a full history of your academic
Yes.
credentials. So the length of the document is variable. In contrast, a resume presents a concise picture of your skills and qualifications for a specific
Perfect.
position. Yeah,
Thank you, Jeff.
you're welcome.
I mean, Mr. Burke.
All right, what about GPA? Will GPA matter as much if you have relevant project or intern experience?
Okay, so I've had this discussion with my colleagues, and especially when I was at the big company, and we all recognize on the HR, the recruitment end, that a lower GPA usually means you were more involved in school. And I say that lightly because my daughter actually has a high GPA and she was very involved in school. But some companies, just because it's policy, they'll ask for a GPA. I wouldn't put it, unless you have a really good GPA, just keep it off your resume, or unless they ask for it. But they might ask for that in the application process anyway. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to show off your GPA or not.
And I just saw
Jeff,
that
do you have
Mr. Rucker put something in the chat on that as well.
Oh, good, okay.
Okay, from Oscar Aguilar, if you do not know specifically what industry you're interested in, but want to get your foot in the door, what should you do?
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that you still want to research the different industries and get a feel for where you want to spend your effort. You know, some people think that these days that, you know, yeah, you take a job, you don't have to stay there very long. You can always go, you know, find another job. And I think that's true, but it's a bit of a dangerous precedent. And so I would really be, you know, fairly certain that you know, a particular industry is kind of where you want to go. Do the homework and make that decision. I'm telling you also that recruiters and hiring managers know if you're looking for a temporary position or a long-term position. And so
Yeah.
it's a fine line, but you have to be careful. And so I my feeling is, you know, figure out what you want to do and put your heart into it and your energy into it and go after it.
I mean, quite honestly, once you're in your position, you'll find your niche, and it might change. But this is about getting on board into a first position, I think. And so researching, kind of getting a direction and a goal of where you want to go is what that is about.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we have a question here from Jose Garcia. Would we approach a CV for an internship differently than a CV for a job?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course. Would we approach a CV for an internship differently than we would approach a CV for a job?
I wouldn't. I mean, I think they're equally important. In fact, a lot of companies use internships as sort of a long hiring process, right? They figure out who they like to work with, and often companies will hire 10 interns and then they'll have permanent offers for, you know, 2 or 3 of them. So I take them both very serious.
Yeah.
And once you have an internship, it looks so good on a resume, especially coming right out of school. I mean, that's real work experience.
Yeah, I want to just reiterate that part of graduate programs, and many of these companies now have graduate programs where they bring in students. It starts at that intern level, and they expect that they're going to keep most, if not all, of the interns.
Right.
Okay, I know we kind of briefly touched on this when we talked about clubs and coursework, but can you kind of help guide students that may have no experience really at all on what they could start off with, or maybe some tips or tricks on how they could build up their CV if they have no experience?
Well, I think you have experience. You just have to tap into it and figure out what it is. And that's going to be kind of an individualized discussion. Again, with your coursework, within your classes, you do projects that gives you experience, right? I imagine everyone here has Excel experience, which is huge on the job if you've got some Excel skills. Word, you have a CAD class, most likely, for many of you. That's a skill. So there's a ton of skills that you can pull out from your academic experience.
Yeah. I think also often times having a practical skill can get you in the door of a company. So, you know, like Lynette was saying, CAD or Excel or some sort of data analysis, that sticks out. I mean, it's hard to figure out what to do with some people, you know, when they first start with your company because they don't have any practical experience. But if they're a whiz at Excel, they can do pivot tables. I look at that very positively.
And even if you don't get this in school, there are so many online courses to learn pivot tables or, you know, data analysis and that kind of thing. So if that's something that you think you'll be interested in, I mean, see other ways to get it. Certifications, like I said, our daughter got certification for an environmental, I don't remember exactly what it was, but while she was doing an internship because she had some little time.
Yeah.
So when you research your position and your company, see what they look for. And And then you can backtrack, go, oh yeah, I kind of have that experience, or this is how I can get it.
Right. I'm looking at this this chat here, and Clark and Mike's background and how long it took him to get through school.
Okay.
I'm a member of that club as well. I tell people I went to graduate school because it took me 8 years, but I had a lot of really great experience during that 8-year period. I worked in the industry. I started in construction, and those skills that I developed were huge when I graduated, because I had the practical side, I had the street sense, and I was able to hit the ground running. Plus, I went to Cal Poly, of course.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. And students, if you're missing the chat, make sure that you check those as well, because we have other DLB members that are answering some of your questions. So we have about 9 minutes left, so I'm gonna go on to the next one here. All right, should we list previous jobs or just the skills that we gained from previous jobs?
Okay, so that's when I was saying the hybrid. I would, if you have previous jobs, definitely list them. You don't have to, a hybrid resume is basically one where you list your skills, but also list your chronology. So your work experience by date. If you do one like that, you don't have to put so much information under the chronology, just something that relates to the job again. And you'll hear me say that all the time. Whatever you put in your resume, make sure it relates to the job that you're applying for. But I mean, I don't know, Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think that as long as the job, I mean, if you don't have any job experience, you have to put something down typically. But if you can possibly just limit the job experience to something that has to do with the position, I think it's really valuable.
But still list it. I mean, I would still list because it shows that you worked. So,
yes. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
I see something about the EIT. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say that the EIT is it's a terrible test. I hated it. But I took it during school and got it out of the way, and then I could put it on my resume. And it's helpful. It's typically in some engineering programs, it's kind of mandatory, like in civil. Anytime that you're going to get a professional engineer's license or certification, it's pretty important. But I think in general, it's important too. It's I know people that waited until they were out of school for a while and they took it, and it was nightmare. All the stuff in there is stuff that you're getting in school. So I take it as quickly as possible.
That's the engineer in training for if anyone's out there that doesn't know what that is. But the other nice thing about that, I've noticed with Alex, our daughter, who had been applying to jobs, is there is a percentage increase in your salary if you have your EIT.
Ah, good point. Yeah. Good point. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know we're going to have a whole session on this.
Yes.
a couple sessions from now, but how soon would you like to see a candidate follow up after submitting a resume to a hiring manager?
Good question. I really appreciate an email even the next day. That's a kind of thank you for spending the time with me, where I'm very interested in this position. I think that shows that you're really serious about it. And I don't know, what do you think, Lynette?
I think there's probably a window of time. Yeah, you can do it right when you get home. I know you don't want to sound too desperate, but in this situation, I don't think that sounds that desperate. It sounds like you're on top of your efforts to get a job, and how much you enjoyed talking to that manager in the company. So I agree, as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So Jeff and Lynette, just offering to the students that in 2 Fridays, I guess one Friday after next, Tom Van Dorp is going to be doing a session on the follow-up. And in that session, he will give you the answer to that question, and it will be very clear. So
Perfect.
if you would like to just hang on for 2 more Fridays, you're going to get the answer.
Yes.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Is the EIT similar or equivalent to an FE for ME students, for mechanical engineering students? Anybody
Lily,
know the
do you know
answer
that?
to that?
Are-
Lily, I think Lily's trying to unmute.
oh,
Maybe not. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's the same thing. It's the test that you take before you take your professional engineer's exam.